Hi, welcome back to your video lectures on Chapter 3, Persia and Greece, and now we're going to finally look at Persia, or the Persian Empire. So the first thing we need to know about Persia is that they start from over here. This is Persia, which is nowadays is what we call Iran. So the Iranians are Persians. And their capital, they have two capitals. First one is Susa, over here, and the other one is Persepolis. So from here, from this region, we have a very dry climate, and we're going to see that these people are going to slowly make their way westward, and they're going to move into Mesopotamia. Right here, we see the Tigris and the Euphrates River. Because remember, this place is rich in agricultural goods, and from there, they're going to expand their empire. They're going to go to the east, right, into the Indus River that we see all the way over here. All right, they're going to go northward, right, into up here. They're going to go into Anatolia, right, Turkey. They're going to go into the regions of, Syria, Tunisia, Lebanon, Israel, Palestine, all those places. And they're also going to conquer the Egyptians. So this empire, which is known as the First Persian Empire, is called the Achaemenid Empire, or Achaemenid Empire. And this will be the largest empire in world history up to this point in world history. And it all starts with this guy. His name is Cyrus the Great. And he's the one that leads this massive expansion of the empire. And he, wherever he traveled, wherever he went, he built these statues kind of to honor himself and to honor his god. And, all these different regions, Anatolia, the Middle East, Mesopotamia, Egypt, Indus, and then Persia, all these different regions will fall under his rule or his descendants' rule. And he gives himself the title of the Shah, right, which is their emperor. And they claim to be divinely chosen, right? They believe that God, their God, chose them to rule. And they claim to have the divine right of kings, right? That they could do whatever they want. They have absolute power. And it's, since God chose them, they could do whatever they want. And the Shah, the nickname that is given, is the King of Kings. So all the kingdoms that they conquered, all those kings will fall and answer to the Persian emperor, to the Persian Shah. And they will have the most centralized empire in history up to that point. And the way they did this was by creating provinces. So they divided this super huge territory, right? All this land is divided into different smaller sections, different smaller provinces, what they called the satraps. Right? And we see the map of the satraps. So all this area was divided into different regions, right? Different satraps. And each satrap had its own individual ruler. And that ruler was from that region. So for example, in Assyria, they would pick an Assyrian to be the ruler. In Egypt, they would pick an Egyptian to be the ruler. In Armenia, they'll pick an Armenian to be the ruler. So that ruler showed loyalty and faithfulness to the king, to the emperor, to the Shah, right? So these were local loyal bureaucrats. So sometimes it would be a king, like the king of, say, Babylon, would remain king of Babylon, but he would answer to the emperor of the Persians, right? Over here in Persepolis, for example. And so you had these local rulers who all paid tribute to the emperor, to the Shah. Now, so the question is why? Like, if you're gonna get conquered, why would you give in? Why would you accept it? And part of it is the deal that the Persians offered the people that they conquered. The Persians, unlike other civilizations we've talked about, like the Syrians and the Babylonians, they were very much tolerant. That was a big part of their thing. They tolerated other people's religion and other people's identity and ways of doing things. They tolerated laws and customs and traditions of the people. So, for example, when they went to Egypt and they conquered the Egyptians, they said, look, Your pharaoh is still your pharaoh. Your religion is still your religion. We're not going to take those things away from you because that's part of who you are as Egyptians. But you have to follow our laws, and you have to pay taxes and send soldiers when the king, when the emperor, when the shah demands it. And it was a better system than, forcing people to do things and killing people who don't do what they want or what you want. So this was very much a tolerance of diversity, and which is very, very uncommon in this ancient classical world. Now, one of the more famous examples of their tolerance is their treatment of the Jewish people. If you recall, the Jewish people had been forced to flee from their homeland, from Israel, when they were conquered by the Babylonians and the Assyrians. And many of them were sent to live in Babylon and forced to work for the Babylonian kings. Well, when the Persians came in and took over the Babylonians and conquered the Assyrians, right, they told the Jewish people, hey, you get to go back home, right? And they're freed from this captivity that they lived under for hundreds of years. So they're allowed to go back home. And in fact, Cyrus the Great is the one who does this. And Cyrus the Great is the only non Jewish person who's mentioned in the Jewish Bible because of this great thing that he did, right? He freed the Jews and allowed them to go back home, something that no one else had done before them. So the Persians, they were not Jewish, they were not polytheistic. They were what we might call monotheistic, but probably more like a dualistic religion, meaning that they believed that there was a eternal war between good and evil. And on the good side, we have the king or the god Ahura Mazda. He's the god of good. And Angra Mainyu, they say over here, is this kind of like monster looking thing. That is the god of evil. And these two forces have been fighting each other since the beginning of time, since eternity. And a prophet named Zarathustra or Zoroaster came around and kind of like wrote down all these ideas in a book in the Persian language. And the idea is, that we as individual humans, right, we can have the good and the evil within us, right? We can do good things or we can do bad things. And it's up to us to decide who we are. And the belief is that if you take actions for the benefit of good, right, then you will be rewarded in an afterlife. So your actions here on earth affect what happens to you for all eternity once you perish. And the same thing goes to the other side. If you choose to do evil, if you're corrupt and you do evil things, then when the good eventually wins, you will be punished for siding with the loser side, right? With the side of evil. So that means that we as humans, we have free will. Right? We get to choose what we want to do. And however, we have to be responsible for the consequences of those actions. So there's a group of priests called the Magi's, right? And they're the ones who kind of start spreading this faith, and eventually, the Persian rulers, the kings, the emperors, they would adopt Zoroastrianism as their religion, as their faith. And the Zoroastrians, Persians, they believed that their king was chosen by the god of good, by Ahura Mazda, to kind of lead their people into greatness, right? So when the Persians are fighting, when the Persians are conquering, when the Persians are, being tolerant, they believe that they are doing Ahura Mazda, the god of good, right? That's service to him. So a lot of these ideas of good versus evil, heaven and hell, free will, right? A lot of those ideas of Zoroastrianism eventually make their way into the other religions of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. And these three, of course, are the monotheistic religions. All right, moving on to society and the environment and Persian economy. So, Persian society, we have a large amount of educated people. So, you have all these super smart people who are being educated, and they all work for the government, right? These are bureaucrats. And this creates a larger middle class in Persian society. Even though they had slavery, and the slaves were used, to construct buildings and for agriculture, they did have slaves. They also had Even though the slave class was large, like in population or racial, in proportion to the empire size, it was relatively small though. Other things you need to mention is that women had some rights, right? They would have, more rights than an Athenian. They would have more rights than a uh, uh, Mesopotamian woman. Probably not as much rights as a Persian or Egyptian woman. But uh, Spartan or Egyptian women would have more rights than a Persian woman would. So they were patriarchal, but that they give women some rights like property ownership, earned wages, and the right to divorce. However, one of the traditions that they started using, and this was even goes back before the Persians, which was a Mesopotamian thing, was to veil women. And at first, it was just upper class women. So an upper class woman would cover her face when walking in public, and this was simply a social distinction, right? It was a way to show the lower class men that they're not like worthy, they're not good enough, they're not rich enough to even look at this upper class woman. But over time, that like social restriction of just upper class women becomes the standard. So then sooner or later, we're going to see that all women are going to be expected to be veiled when being out in public, regardless of whether they're upper class or not. So what starts as a tradition amongst the upper class, eventually we'll see in history it makes its way spread across all social classes and putting all women under the veil. Now, Cyrus the Great is the great conqueror. His One of his descendants is Darius or Darius, and he did a lot of great things. He controlled the way taxes are being charged, right, based on population. So if you have X amount of people, then you have to pay X amount of taxes every year. He built the capital Persepolis. He constructed the royal road, which we'll talk about now. He also implemented standardized coins, meaning that everyone knows the value of money. Like this coin is worth X amount, and you know exactly how much the value is. He also set up a spy network called the Eyes and the Ears of the King, and basically these spies were sent out across the empire. They would report to the king directly, to the emperor, and they would tell him, this lord wants to rise up against you. There's a rebellion that's going to start over here, and it was a way to keep the satraps and the rulers called the satrapies under control, under supervision. Now, all these taxes they were used to build infrastructure and to pay for the bureaucrats who helped run the government. Now, infrastructure, we're looking at roads, we're looking at canals, we're looking at irrigation systems, right? Things that you need to keep functioning, basically. Persepolis in its time was this awesome, awesome city. Uh, and nowadays it's just like a tourist attraction for, it's just ruins. But in its time, it was this great city. So the Royal Road, right? The Royal Road started over here in Persepolis, and it's made its way all the way from Persepolis to Lydia, which is in Anatolia. So along this long road, right, basically you have a kind of like a highway, right, of its time, this expressway, this turnpike, and along the road, each 5, 10, 20 miles, they'll set up a post, and this will be the formation of a postal system. So you have a guy on a horse, he rides 5, 10, 20 miles, and then he delivers the message to the next runner. The next runner takes the message, kind of relay, and you have these fast communication systems. This is the fastest way you can communicate across such a massive long distance. And this allowed the Persian emperor, like if he hears of something that's happening over here, right, within a few hours or days, he could hear, he'll know about it and take action as quickly as possible. On top of that, the royal rule, besides improving communication, it also improved trade because now you could travel from the Mediterranean, from the Black Sea, all the way here to the Persian Sea, right? And you have all this trade back and forth along the empire. More trade, of course, is more benefit to the money, benefit to the economy. Here we see some of the coins of the Persians, right? So they start using standardized coins, and of course they would print the rulers right? They would print the images of the kings, and this is kind of like a subtle reminder, like who's in charge, who is the king, because every time you look at a coin that you own in your pocket, you are reminded like this money is guaranteed, is protected, is established, it's given to you thanks to your lord, thanks to your king, thanks to your emperor, thanks to the Shah, the King of Kings. Now, the Persian homeland, right, which we call Iran, it is a very barren area, very dry area, and it is not easy to grow things. So the Persians, they create this extremely innovative idea called the kanats, right? And basically, they would dig these wells, right, into the mountainside, and had these kind of like underwater canals, so that when the little time that it did rain, you will, or that water, uh, water melted from the high peaks of from the snow, it'll collect here and it will eventually make its way here to the irrigated land. So it's kind of like instead of having like water on the surface, which the sun will eventually evaporate, you had water underground so that it wouldn't evaporate, and then you could use that water and distribute it to wherever it is that you need it to grow crops. So it's very impressive engineering feat to make this like dry area hospitable to agriculture. And from there it is that we see the origins of the Persian Empire. All right, so that's it with the Persian Empire. Let's go continue with our next part in our next video. Thanks for watching.